What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the quarantine zone again, and this time we are here with Wes of Alluvial. Thank you so much for being here today, man. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me, buddy.
Yeah, anytime, anytime. So the newest album is Sarcoma, which is coming out May 28th, so fairly soon. With the making of this album, was the original intention to kind of make a direct continuation of what we heard off of The Deep Longing for Annihilation, or were you trying to maybe step into more uncharted territory and experiment a little bit more with this new album?
I think that the first record kind of functions well enough for what it is. There's a lot of really long songs and a lot of riffs. I guess the vision for it was to have vocals, but I don't know that I was developed enough as a songwriter at the time to make that a full possibility. So this one, I guess it was just heeding my intuition on the types of things that I like, which really comes down to I like action-packed 3.5, 4.5 minute long songs, and really trying to arrange them well for vocals. I mean, I think the first record's like an hour long. This one's like 40 minutes. So, like trying to, I guess, have the some of the stuff in place with it being like, sort of familiar nomenclature with death metal and some black and roll kind of stuff, but make them just songs that people want to hopefully hear them again.
Well, being that alluvial, I mean, I consider it to be like a death metal supergroup. You playing with many bands such as The Faceless and Black Crown Initiate and so much more. But you're having Kevin Muller, who's played with Suffocation and Pyrexia, and having Matthew, who's played with a lot of other bands. So like maybe would you say that maybe like having members who played in different bands maybe help influence the sound of Alluvial in a way, or do you all try to maybe distance yourselves from previous projects?
Um, I would say that, well, I mean, full disclosure, like the record was definitely done by the time I had kind of talked to Tim and Matt, or I guess for the most part done. So the drums are recorded by a guy named Matt Guglielmo, great drummer. He's an engineer that works up at a studio called Graphic Nature in New Jersey, which is formerly where Will Putney used to work out of. And like when I was kind of doing or finishing up the record, I didn't really know that we were going to sign a Nuclear Blast. It's not that I thought it was something that was out of reach, but I just planned for a bit to self-release it like I have done before. So as far as them having influence or anything like that, I'd say that that isn't they're part of the equation on this record, but there's as far as Kevin went, yeah, I mean, I was just a really big fan of everything he did on the most recent Suffo record, and then of course like Merciless concept stuff, and we, as much as maybe you view it as a death metal super group, I'd say that that's definitely very far out of our focus. And typically I don't like the idea of super groups, and because like they sort of aim to build equity in what they're doing by using past associations, like kind of just sort of like pick from fan bases. And I think that our whole thing is we definitely are a new band, we're a baby band, and we're just kind of trying to go out and earn it and not try to naturally, from a press standpoint, it makes sense for people, to cite the other bands that we've been in, just for the sake of, familiarizing people like, hey, it's these dudes, but it's definitely not where we're headed. I think that's probably clear in the music, but yeah, I mean, the dudes are all killer players for sure. So I mean, I imagine that on this next one, now that we're sort of a band, that there'll probably be a whole lot of more input from the other guys. I mean, really, over the course of a few years, I wrote all of that stuff sitting right here, in this like chair, everything you're seeing right now. So, yeah, I look forward to writing with all of those dudes. Matt and Tim, and of course Kevin.
And being that you released 3 singles right now off of Sarcoma, for people who haven't heard the album yet, could those maybe 3 singles serve as a clear representation of what the entirety of the album will sound like, or is there a lot more to discover on and a lot more tricks and twists?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more. Ulysses sort of, I guess, is a hint at the, like 220 and up sort of like death metal stuff. Thy Underling is sort of a hint at the more like conservatively tech sort of like groove stuff. And then 40 is, there's one other song that you could say that is sort of like it. There's a song called Sleepers That Become Giants on the record, and it's that song in a lot of ways. If you like, I've tried to explain it to people, or when people have heard it, they're like, man, I don't really like know what to call this, but they like it a lot. I kind of think of that as like, it's like our heart-shaped box, like it's a pretty much like a Nirvana song played by like Rain Chaos era Dissection. But if Rain Chaos era Dissection had like guitars that were tuned really low. So I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a single song on the record that shares a tempo or like a rhythmic motif, you know what I mean? Everything's really pretty different from song to song. So
Yeah.
I think people will hopefully enjoy that part of it. I mean, because
Well, my analysis of this album is that I think if you were to combine the greats, because there's melodic death metal, traditional death metal, tech death metal. I feel like this is basically if you took like a Tomb of the Mutilated combined with Slaughter of the Soul combined with the Sound of Perseverance. I think that those like are really, that's what I see in Sarcoma. It almost has kind of like the best of all forms of death metal on here.
Interesting. I mean, that's pretty cool. I mean, I don't know at this point how like, nobody's calling us a deathcore band. I guess I'm seeing progressive death metal a lot, which like, or atmospheric death metal, which is, like, I'm fine with either of those. I'm fine with the public at large kind of determining what we are, because I kind of think that if I was going to say that there was like break it up into a mixture, I'd say it's kind of like 45% traditional sort of like metal, you know what I mean? And then there's like a 45% sort of like kind of death metal, and then there's a 10% sort of like black and roll thing, like the Dissection and some of like the Americans black metal, like Lord Mantis and Indian and Cobalt and that kind of stuff. Like there's like it's conservatively tech, you know what I mean? It's not for like the dudes who love just like really, really ambitious tons of crazy like riffing. There's some of that in there, and I think that's we're always going to want it to burn a little bit, but I think that we're more, I could see us leaning into more, I don't want to say simpler songs, but like leaning into more of less of an emphasis on tech in the future. That isn't to, I mean, I haven't made that decision fully because it's kind of hard to say what the new music will end up sounding like. But yeah, I mean, thus far for this record, I think we covered a lot of bases. I think that anyone who was a fan of the first record could have maybe imagined there being some singing on some stuff, and we did that. There's an instrumental song for all the people who really kind of like dug into the first record and really kind of made it theirs, you know, and have been with the band since the beginning. So I don't want to leave any of those people behind either. I guess, you know, I think it's a really good, it's kind of got a lot for everyone. So
yeah, definitely. And I mean, for you being, you know, because I really think that like your guitar playing has its own signature style behind it. And, you know, I discovered that, you know, I've been listening to the Faceless album that you were on, Autotheist, since, you know, I was in high school. And like, you know, discovering, you know, on how you play with a lot of other bands and moving on to this. Like, for your guitar playing, I mean, for the inspiration to strike, does inspiration strike when you least expect it sometimes, or do you sometimes have, like, you know, you're in your studio now, you kind of have like a realm where the creative energy flows through in a way?
it happens a few different places. There's sometimes where it happens where I'm not anywhere near a guitar. Like I'm at a amusement park with my kids, or I'm in like a hotel lobby, or I'm anywhere, and like that's sort of that's like the analog inspiration, I guess. That's kind of what I call it. It's the stuff that kind of sticks in your head. Like currently I have like certain riffs or song ideas that are just literally in my head that I haven't put into a computer yet, and tried to kind of mess around with and arrange. Then there's stuff that happens when I have a guitar in my hands, and then there's stuff that happens where I'm out of practice, you know what I mean? And that seems to be a lot, at least for Sarcoma, like a lot of the stuff that I started to write happened when my focus mentally wasn't like being identified as a guitar player, you know? And that's tricky because a lot of the times, especially with this kind of tradition in heavy metal music, to hunker down and ration technique for a few years and then come out with something really exciting, and that's yielded all kinds of really, really crazy results that have influenced tons of bands, right? I mean, like, you know, Meshuggah being kind of a great example to cite. Like, I'm sure that Bleed wasn't a tune that they were just like, all right, well, I got this under my hands, let's go record it. It was something that was pretty premeditated. And I mean, I remember seeing them direct support to Ministry whenever that record or Obzen had just come out, and they were only playing like half of the song because they hadn't fully like figured it out yet. But of course now that song's like a staple, and they, you know, they play it like crazy. So there's that part of it, and then there's the part of it where you know, it, especially now being sort of inspired by Kevin and hearing this and kind of thinking in a lot of ways like the best way to showcase him, you know? Because for a while, it was really hard to visualize how vocals were going to be on this stuff. You know what I mean? We're talking, you know, like 2018, 2019. I hadn't have a sound or an application for it yet. Like, I mean, and this is just like a one example. I wrote a lot of this stuff in standard tuning, like B standard on a 7-string. And there were like a couple songs that I had written in this G sharp standard tuning, which is basically a step and a half down from standard. And Kevin voice just sounded right over that stuff. So pretty much most of the record now, save for 2 songs, I think, which are 40 and Sugar Paper, the instrumental that ended up being a standard. The tuning stuff and everything, just it was a journey in kind of getting to this iteration of the sound. I'm grateful for it, for sure. There was definitely, a lot of songs that I demoed 3 times before I ended up recording them for real. And yeah, I mean, I love Kevin. I love everything that he does. We are real tight, and I get inspired by him, and his enthusiasm for the band kind of inspires me too. So yeah, I mean, there's a big part of that now that I think is gonna direct the way the songs are gonna be written.
Yeah. And what I find unique is, I love that term you use, journey, because like when you like look at, this album, I think Sarcoma really is like that. It is like a journey through, almost organized chaos. I feel like that, this album is very representative of the times that we're living in now with these chaotic times and all this anxiety, but I think it could represent external chaos as well as internal chaos. I think that really you made an album that's meant to express the external but also be there for the internal. That's my interpretation of this album, because I think you're able to kind of use multiple sounds and multiple styles to demonstrate different emotions and where those different emotions can come from.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I thought of something while you were saying that. There's like some stuff lyric wise that ended up, I'm definitely not saying I'm a prophet, but there are certain lyrics, like especially in Anodyne, citing a pandemic, but as it related to something else, these are like lyrics that if someone didn't know any better, they'd think that I like wrote a lot of this stuff during 2020, but like it's not the case. I somehow ended up writing lyrics that conceptually fit for what was going to come later. So
there's going to be a lot of metal bands that get called to Senate because of how much they predicted the times that we're living in now. Like the Heaven Shall Burn album that came out last year came out in like March, but it described everything from the pandemic to the unrest to the division to everything. Like there's everybody's like talking about what were the origins of this virus. I think they should listen to some of these albums. Maybe they'll get an answer.
Yeah, I mean, or at the very least, like have some sort of record. I usually have, your brain's this big chemical electrical factory, you know what I mean? It's this big scrambled eggs mass up here that puts out certain chemicals that make you feel certain ways. So there's certain records that if I put them on, like remind me of a certain time or whatever, and especially if they're the records that I really enjoyed, it was almost like this weird place to crawl inside of and view the world, or kind of hang out in for a while. And I guess I hope that we can provide a similar experience with this record. And I mean, I guess it's a cool time to put out a record, same year as Gojira's putting out a record, same year Cannibal's putting out a record. It's going to be seems like there's a lot of records coming out despite the lack of the ability to go perform. So yeah, I mean, it's been cool.
Yeah, well, we're going to enter the best era of music ever when this shit's over, so just be prepared to be on the road a little bit. And that led me to my final question. After this virus that shall not be named is finally behind us, obviously we'll be seeing Alluvial on the road quite a bit, right? Any chance you could, bring Sarcoma out to play for people? We're angry, we're pissed off, we need this type of music.
Yeah, definitely, that's the plan. Although I think, like, it's weird. I see a lot of stuff ramping up, but I don't from internally, the types of emails that I've been seeing, like for the few tours that we have confirmed now, is that everyone's like, yeah, I wouldn't plan logistics too heavily because it's looking like everything's going to get bumped to 2022. And I'd say, as much as we are eager to go out and play, I would like to see, I'd like to see it happen whenever it needs to happen. And like, you can kind of, whatever it is that makes people, like promoters, booking agents, and I guess attendees safest and most comfortable, whenever that is, all those things are in place, if they're ever going to be in place, I guess, you know, that's the most important part of it for us, you know. And a lot of people don't realize that by fans is what I mean by this, is that the sort of promoter and booking agent relationship relies on the ability for both of them to take risks, you know. And a band like us, right, a sort of unproven baby band, I mean, while things are going great as far as the raw data and numbers are concerned, we're still an unproven band. So like, I imagine that we'll be last in line for people to want to take risks on us. But if we can jump on, you know, our friends' tours, which that's kind of happening now, and they're down to take a chance on us, that's a great thing. So I guess bear with us, you know, for the people that have gotten involved in the band in the past and are getting involved in it now, bear with us and being able to go out there and play the stuff, because as this whole thing sort of slowly lurches back to life, I imagine that the bands that put asses in seats are going to get the fucking grease first, you know?
That happens, but who knows? I mean, I'm so desperate for live music, I'm willing to go into a Guitar Center and watch somebody butcher Sweet Child O' Mine, and I've never thought in a million years I would say that, so.
Where are you at in New York?
I live, you know the Gramercy Theater?
So you're in Manhattan?
Yeah, 4 blocks away from Gramercy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've played there a whole bunch of times. Hopefully I'll see you there. You know, and that's good to know that place is still going, because that's like, you know, it's a great room for a lot of, you know, like, I don't think there's a 600 cap room like that in the country that has, like, you know, that kind of back box seating, and then like, you know,
yeah, that place
a floor thing, like, you know, it's a great sounding room too. So that's great to hear that it's still there.
Yeah, definitely. We'll pull out of this and we'll be better because of it. But thank you so much, Wes, for all your time today and for such a great conversation. Everybody, we are here with Wes of Alluvial. Be sure to check out Sarcoma, coming out May 28th via Nuclear Blast. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We will see you next time.